Hi guys, and welcome back to Techify tutorial. This will be another one, which this time I'm going to be doing on reactors. I'm not going to get to the other stuff just yet. Also, I can't, well, not I can't, but I'm not going to do the modular power suits one just yet, like I was going to, because I accidentally deleted the world. Well, it wasn't an accident, my Techify wasn't running properly, so I had to delete the entire thing and forgot to save the worlds. Either way, brand new world, it's another super flat, I don't care, it's tutorials, it's not really necessary. But today I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks to do with the big reactors, turbines and stuff like that, as well as a few designs I've come up with for maximum efficiency. Now, turbines I haven't had much experimentation with. I've only come up with one massive design, but reactors I have been fiddling with quite a lot. And just get some reactor casing just to show off, basically. So, that's not the right size. There we go. So, with a reactor, the most basic reactor I can think of that is not stupidly low powered is this smallest one. Now, reactors run on the idea that you place in a fissionable material. It's like a nuclear reactor in real life, and it turns the fissions the material, makes energy. In this particular case, because of the update, they now have two modes. Instead of just being... Sorry, I had to burp. Instead of just being a fission and then makes energy direct, like they have been mostly before, you can instead make them produce steam. And yeah, need to grab a couple of bullets. Access port, glass, control rod, and I need a fuel rod. Fuel rods. So you can make it so that they fill this fuel rod up with yellorium, have a control rod system above, fill with glass, and have where's the controller? Oh, damn it. There we go. Controller, access port, and a piece of glass. And it'll do this. It'll suddenly turn into a fully functioning reactor. You can place yellorium in, so yellorium is that ingot, and plutonium is, cyanide is its waste, as it fissions material. Now, this is a basic kind of reactor. You can make them one smaller. But one of the beauties about the reactors is they don't have to be a set size to begin with. You can make them like 4x4, or 16 by 2 by, well, not 2, 3 by 7, or something. They have to be a minimum size of 3 by 3 by 3 in all dimensions to work, because that's the smallest you can make them and still fit in everything you need to. You'll know it works when all of the blocks bond together. I know I'm running SFAX, but it'll still bond together in a similar manner if you're running a typical texture pack. Now for this, I'm just going to break this and head back in. Put that glass back there. For me, one of my favourites to begin with is a reactor that does this. Place control rods above the fuel rods again. Always have to remember that. Now I've got an access port, and one of the things, I could just run like that. I could put in some coolant, say cryothium, which is the single most effective, but you can use others. Ideally you need to experiment. This is a really complicated system. I'm just showing you my favourites, ones that I find most efficient. But you can throw in coolant, like so. Source blocks aren't necessary. You can get flowing water, but cryothium falls, so you need to fill it with source blocks. Or it mix snow everywhere. So make like so. This reactor will just generate power straight off, and all these other things. You've got casing heat, which is the reactor itself, core heat, which is the rods, current fuel status completely empty, and the energy it's making. Could just do it like that, but this is something I do, is I turn it into a steam making version. I just add a coolant port. That's all you need to do. You can't just add one though. Put one in for steam out, like so. Right click on it with an empty hand to change its position, and at least one for water in. So I'm going to put in two because I have a preference for doing things like this, and I'll show you why in a bit. So you place that in, and assuming you have a turbine to power, it'll produce this power. Now this thing is very close to, but not quite, good for producing exactly 2 buckets of steam per tick. in this particular instance, I want a turbine to power with that. So I'm going to make a basic turbine that I know will take, so I can show you what the turbines are like, but also will take plenty of steam. So actually, I keep filling up with turbine parts. Turbine part, rotor bearing, fluid port, power port, controller. It's a bit complicated the amount of blocks you need to make, but they are relatively simple to build. So anyway, I can also build a turbine in a similar manner. The smallest turbine can be is 5 by 5 by 4. The reason for this is because of the way it's constructed. And well, I don't actually know if you can make some water again, but anyway. So we need the need some shaft. So this is the rotor itself, the central bit that will turn. Oh, not that. And some blades, which will catch the steam that gets pumped in from another place and turns the whole thing. You gotta leave some space though, and have some more bearing, because you need some coil material. Now you could just use, say, gold or iron, and it works like an electromagnet. And I don't know if you know how that works, but when you rotate some metal through other metal that is in a coil fashion, it generates electricity. Complicated physics, but it works. In this particular instance, I'm going to use the most effective version, just for the greatest effect on producing power and slowing it down. So this won't necessarily be a realistic representation of what your first turbine will be like, but just roll with it. So I make a coil. It doesn't have to be a full coil. You can just break bits off and like that, and it'll just work. It calculates everything anyway by itself, so it doesn't matter. You do this, and on the I did do this wrong. I knew I did it wrong. Okay, slight change. Okay, the bearing has to go at the end, which houses the blades, not the coil. So in this instance, what I want to do is I want to not have the bearing there. Say I want to have the coil at the bottom. So build the coil. And I build blades. Oh, no. Blades, 3, 4. Then I put the bearing on top where the blade section is. And provides the most support, whatever, I don't know. But it doesn't like it if it's at the other end. It actually tells you if you do it wrong. And I'll give you an example in a second. Oh, damn, it's going to night. My brightness? My brightness is okay. So what? Time set day. There we go, that's fine. So build a turbine, keep going. Turbines, depending on how you build the coil, they can cost either very little or quite a lot. Every 4 blocks of turbine requires a cyanide ingot. Oh, that's the housing, this housing stuff here I'm using. So, and the glass is just a single turbine block with 2 glass around it, so it costs effectively just as much as the normal blocks, except a bit of glass. I'll show you the recipes in a sec. Like that, like so. And I want a fluid port here and here for steam to go in and water to come out. So I'm done with the Endurium blocks, so there we go. So that brings out the water after it's cooled, and that allows steam to go in from the reactor. Turbine controller, and the whole thing comes together. Now, say I were to deal with this, put this bearing on the wrong end, and I just dig underneath, and put the bearing here. Now it doesn't form the multi-block, and I right-click on the controller, and it says rotor blades must be placed closer to the rotor bearing than all other parts. It tells you, which is always handy, so you know what you've done wrong. The controller usually tells you what's wrong with the multi-block, so you can fix it. There we go. Oh, and placing other housing blocks and stuff ruins the structure as a whole because of the way it registers how the structure's set. So you kind of have to make sure that nothing else is touching it that isn't. You can have like dirt surrounding it and things. You can just random stuff on the side, but any of the blocks that are supposed to go in the entire thing will ruin it if it's directly touching and isn't part of the structure. Same goes with reactors actually. Do that. Fuck, it just messes it up. Fucks it up, it does. Anyway, so we've got a basic reactor here, got a basic turbine here. Now I could just pipe stuff from here into the turbine, but we're dealing with quite large quantities of fluid flowing per second. So instead, I'm just going to use some tesseracts. They have no limit at the moment, thanks to thermal expansion, removing the... there used to be like a tax, if you will. Anything that went through it, except items, I think, got some stuff taken off it. So like fluids and energy always got taxed. Anyway, something we're also missing from this particular one, but I'm not bothered about because it'll just show, is a power port. In this case, it's this thing. You just place them in there, and that's how the power comes out of. There's a similar thing for the turbine. The reactor, if you're not doing it in steam making mode. Anyway, some more tesseracts. And tesseract here, here, and here. Now these will all be set to specific channels. Okay, so this tesseract is steam out. So I'm just going to set it to channel 1, call it steam, save it, set it, there we go. And I'm also going to change it to send only. It'll all set it to receive only automatically, which is kind of handy for some of them. Anyway, this is the... that's water out, never mind. This one's steam in, so I just set this one to steam as well. This one is water out, so channel 2. I'm going to call this return water. I'll tell you why in a second. Return water, save and set. Flow mode will be send only. I'm just ignoring the other channels for the moment because it doesn't have to deal with them, so I'm not worried about that. This one I'm going to set to the return water as well. This one receives. And this one is going to be the startup water because the reactor can't... There's no water in the entire system, no steam either. So you need some startup water. Now something that's handy is Enderaya reservoirs, or you can go for aqueous accumulator, which does it, but it does it a little bit slower. Anyway, this thing can just go like this. You can pipe it out through some pressurized fluid conduits, like so. Just pipe it out like this into another tesseract. I know the distances are tiny, but depending on how you do your setups, the tesseracts can be handy. They are expensive as well, so you can pipe, but I don't recommend it because you'll need to make more ports to accommodate the larger flow of water. Speaking of which, a couple of buckets in the what? Work, damn it. Okay, this is weird. What? Let's try and do this. No, it won't do it. That is really weird. Okay, I'm gonna solve this and I'll be right back. Aqueous accumulator. And cobble. Yeah, this thing doesn't like to operate until it's got another one. What the hell? Okay, now you're happy to do that. Now will you output? That is really strange. Sledgehammer. Insert. And it just won't accept it. What the hell? I changed direction, it still won't either. Okay, so for some reason the reservoir doesn't want to fill. I've tried several methods and it just won't do it. So, we're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to get some aqueous accumulators. Just get a bunch of them. Say 4 just in case. Get the pressurized conduits. Of course they're going to be annoying and finicky. Alright, let's get a precision sledgehammer. Something to note is that with the precision sledgehammer, you don't have to hit the hitbox right, you just have to hit the side on the physical object. So that'll link up nicely, and that'll link up nicely. That works. And then just need some water, because the aqueous accumulators don't just make water out of thin air like the reservoirs do. You need to make some troughs of water next to them. Don't know if anybody knows about this, but hey. I'm pretty sure anybody who knows how to operate these, then just skip this bit. Okay, so there's the water, and that's water. I keep missing out T's in those words. So that's happily filling up, and that shall send it into the Tesseract. Now this I shall name channel 3, and this is startup water. Now this is important because if you don't do this, then it will never work. That's the send only, and this one set to startup water receive. And the excellent thing about this is the Tesseracts will just send in the water. There's the water, and I can fill up in yellorium. There it is, yellorium ingots. Fill up, 28 left. Just fill it up, why not? And there we go, full of fuel. Of course you'll have to mine the yellorium yourself. It's a small reactor, and yes, this is small. The even smaller ones are even smaller again. Now with the turbines you can set a maximum flow rate of the steam per second, but this one I'm just going to set to 2000 because this reactor itself is going to be set to 2000. I'm also going to add a red net port to this thing. This will become prevalent in a second. Get rid of all these things. That's a basic setup. Now the turbine obviously is very inefficient, but it works. I'll just turn the reactor on. Now this thing is just shooting up in heat, insanely so. In fact, by now it probably would have gone pop, or melting down if that had been added. But it hasn't yet, but it will be in the future. Anyway, so activate the turbine so it can start receiving the steam. Then it'll start making energy from that steam. It also sends back what water it can. And the heat here is now dropping because the steam's actually passing through and it's cooling it. Because the steam's leaving, heat is effectively leaving the reactor. Now, at the moment it's at 2000 millibuckets per second, because this is the maximum it can transfer per second. But this thing tries to make more, so we kind of want to change how much it's producing per second. Now, we could just go ahead and change these control rods. If you don't have the red net port and you don't have the ability to change the control rods differently, just set the outer ones to 10% and leave the middle one, and it comes to roughly right. Comes to the temperatures are coming down again, and it's still producing the 2000 millibuckets per tick, and you use a little bit less fuel. But if you have a programmable RedNet controller, and this is RedNet, I mean you don't have to do this, you can do this a slightly different way, but this is the RedNet port, this is how it works. There's a variety of things you can put in, and you put them into all these slots, specifically designed for this thing, and you put into the white area this. This is changing how much the control rod is set to, the percentages, things I changed on top, set to white. I hit commit, and then I random voice break. Got some RedNet cable, which is the accompanying cable which carries the redstone signal, so you know what it is. And I set like that. Now my texture pack is annoying and doesn't allow for something that is important. Now, something that's cool is pass-through. Set the signal strength. So in this case, I'm going to set the signal strength to 9. This will change the controls to 9%. And change this. Now, there should be a D here, especially IOD, and it cycles through U, a D for down, U for up, L for left, R for right, B for back, and F for front. I don't know if the back and front ones are that way around, but still. I'm going to hit it once more. That should set it to up. And that will change the percentages on here to a specific percent, something you can't do manually. Which makes sense, actually. And this thing, it's losing temperature yet again, but it's still not losing steam per tick. It's because it's more efficient. Ideally, the way you want to figure that out is you want to have a second turbine which soaks up the excess. This thing will then register how much it's actually making, or trying to make, and then you can adjust this so it's as close as possible to the one turbine. Now, each turbine can only take 2000 per tick. That's it. It's impossible. Like literally, I'd try and go higher, and just won't do it. Nothing. Oh, this thing is full of energy already as well. Let's get a resonant energy cell, an empty one. Stick that in the back. There we go. That drops. and this thing will happily fill over time. This thing's not generating that much. I know 2,146 redstone flux per tick might seem like a lot. That really isn't. I'm going to build an example of a turbine which should be much better. I'm actually curious. Look at Right, so that's the turbine change. As you notice, it is now a lot bigger, and I will probably have just set that to speed through so you can see the entire construction. Whatever you do, do not use this much glass. Anybody who's used turbines before will understand and cringe, probably have cringed at the amount I've just used. If you're in creative, it's fine, because you could just break it and replace it easily, but if you're in single player, well, it takes forever. In fact, I think it takes about as much time as an obsidian block to break. I don't know if it's a bug or if it's on purpose, but reactor glass does not break quickly at all. Even the most powerful tools just hate it. Anyway, I'm just going to place this last piece of glass. That's the entire turbine built. Now, the turbine should activate and start spinning up. There we go. Now, the turbine's going to spin up rather slowly to begin with. And this thing's temperature should be shooting down. Good. This thing obviously wasn't... I left it operating the entire time. And so it's done that. Anyway, this thing is going to produce... Hang on, a resonance cell. Need another resonance cell. Shut that on. There we go. So this thing will speed up slowly. And the reason I built it exactly like this is 37 Enderium blocks. The coil doesn't have to be complete. You can hack them out from like there and make the coils more even, whatever you want. This is exactly 80 blades. That's the maximum you can have. Well, you can have more, but it's more inefficient. So that's a 10 long strutted blades, 4 blades on each section, and the blades are two pieces long, which makes it to 80 blades in effect. The reason is each blade for maximum efficiency requires 25 millibuckets of steam per tick. 25 times by 80 equals 2,000, which is the maximum output of the turbine. The reason for that specific amount of coils as well is to cause enough lack of rotation on the turbine that the more coil you have, the slower it will go, regardless of the amount of blades you have. So that it stops it from speeding up too much. Actually, the way I said that was kind of wrong. If you have more blades, it'll probably go faster until you hit 80. But if you add more coils and don't change the number of blades, it'll go slower. So this way, this thing will go up. This is the most efficient design I could come up with. It's 4 blades shy of a design someone else has shown in their tutorial. Someone else showed the 3 blades were 3 long, and the whole thing was shorter and fatter. But it was 84 blades. This is exactly 80, so this is a tiny bit more efficient. I want to stress, though, the efficiency of this thing does not come in energy. This thing only produces 2 more RF per tick than the other version. That's how little difference it made. The thing comes here is the resources. It requires like 100 less iron for the whole turbine, which in the long run of the amount of resources you need for this isn't massive, but it's about a 20% reduction in the amount of iron you need and cyanite you need for the non-blade materials, the turbine housing that is. So this thing is still speeding up. This is going to take ages to speed up. So while this speeds up, you get the idea of how the turbine is. I'm going to show you a couple of other reactor designs while I'm at it. Get rid of you. This resonance cell's probably going to want to fill up in the time this thing tries to do that, so I'm going to set it like this, so that all of these two drain into this one, and they've got all this space to fill up from. So anyway, Reddit port, glass, access port, coolant port is currently trapped behind the Tesseract. Hang on, break this a second. Place the glass, reactivate the reactor. Turbines will activate again after if you like break them and then put them back again, whereas the reactors don't. If you break it, they won't return to normal. This thing's struggling to produce the steam it was before because it's just reactivated, so the temperature's kind of trying to rise. I'll change the percentages to 8. This thing should go back up to normal. It's trying. It's really strange. It was completely fine before. I don't know. I'm going to leave the fuel rods 8, just in case. Anyway, for a reactor design, this is perfect. The current setup is perfect for one turbine. However, there are other setups which work better. The next one up is slightly bigger, but the one up from that again is the same size. So, this setup here... nope, a little bit off. I'm always making them too thin, but right depth. Wait, hang on. No, this is the right depth, yeah. Okay, reactor. Anybody who's on the server, if you've been to my place recently, you'll probably recognise this design. It's the one that's currently in my base. I have 2 turbines running, so this will work nicely. Okay, so this is 5 blocks tall, 7 blocks wide, by 7 blocks deep, by 5 blocks tall, is what I'm using. Actually, I'm going to have it as glass on top as well, actually. Might as well just show it as all glass, just to see how things are. No, what am I doing? Right, oh yeah, fuel rods as well. So, as things stand, fuel rods stand 3 tall in a plus formation, with control rods on top. If any of you are wondering how I'm like doing this and switching between blocks and stuff like that, and picking up blocks like I did, it's the middle mouse click. You do that in a single player. As long as you've got the block in your inventory, it'll give it to you, or it'll switch to it. And in creative, if you don't have that block in your inventory, it'll give it to you, or give you a block. It's kind of handy to know. A little trick I just randomly came across. Anyway. Loads of glass. Again, reactor glass is the same as turbine glass. It's cringeworthy to use this much, but this is for display purposes and tutorial purposes, so that's the only reason I'm using this much glass. My normal reactor uses about, well, probably a fifth of this amount of glass. So when I try and take it apart, even that's going to be annoying. But it won't take that long. Right, so we have controller. We have an access port for fuel. We've got control rods on top. We'll have coolant ports just to show you. Actually, I'll have coolant port there and I'll have access port there. That'd do it. Have all these things. Stick in some more glass. Before it, so that forms up nicely, so I know it's correct. Just break it again, and I'm going to fill it with cryo-theme. God love you some cryo-theme. Now this stuff is just annoying to deal with, but you know, this design is actually okay. Every surface has an available place you can click on to fill it, so filling it isn't hard to do. And when you're in cryo-theme as well, you can kind of see where isn't cryo-theme. Doesn't just fill your field of view. I need to shift click around here because the access port. There we go. Don't have to just click around your field of view to wait, what am I saying? Anyway, the coolant ports I don't have to shift right click on. I've got something in hand, so they just won't be harmed. But still, I like to be cautious, and just in case something were to ever change. Yeah, that, and then that, and then that. Of course, because of their very nature, trying to fill this stuff up is... You can do it precisely, but sometimes it does this whole, oh, I'm going to fall down and then suddenly change because you didn't fill this up correctly because there's like lag or something. Anyway, so this is completely filled with cryo-theme. There we go, completely filled with cryo-theme. If you ever find yourself dealing with cryo-theme on the server, do not swim in it like I just did. It will kill you. This stuff is deadly. Even in a power suit with all shields and everything, or really good armor, it kills you pretty quickly. So it's not the best. Anyway, so this reactor is now solid, contained, and because the snow doesn't settle on glass and it doesn't settle on control rods, so you could make the top and keep it snow free, or you could just make it normal reactor material and it'll just make snow. Why not? You just grab a shovel and you got a load of free snow for yourself. And the snow helps make more cryo-theme as well. Part of the recipe for cryo-theme is snow. Anyway, or at least make... no, it is because you make it from blizz powder and stuff and snowballs and things, and you can make blizz powder from snowballs. Anyway, So this thing, fill it up, and this has the control rod set to 0%, I think? I think this one's naturally 0%. I have to double check that. I have actually have a list of all the specs for this reactor as well as the others. Nope. Control rods are set to 11%, like slightly higher than the other ones. So I'm gonna need me a RedNet port. RedNet port, RedNet, and PRC. Programmable RedNet controller. Stick you in there. Commit. Have to click commit. If you just hit escape, it won't do it. Like that. Do that. Do pass through again. Just standard pass through, no gated ring or anything. I know this stuff might be confusing, but whatever. I'm sure this is just for tutorial purposes. I'll explain the PRC in more length later, especially when I understand it a little bit better myself. Anyway, this should be set to I/O U. There should be a U there. No, CNS 11. And that should have set the control rods all to 11%. Yep, has done nicely. That means this thing's set up right. You don't need a constant signal, but I like to keep it there just in case I want to change the percentages at any point. And this thing will now produce, if I take the tesseracts from over there, say this one, I'll set this one to the output, so that. Now you have to get rid of it every single time because of the data it tries to save. So if you just middle mouse click and you've already got one in hand, it will put your hand to that, but it won't give you the data from the new one you've just middle moused on. All the settings and stuff, so you have to get rid of it each time if you're in creative. Like so. And I shut down this reactor. Blah 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 blah. And activate this one and put some Yellorium in it. This thing soaks up nearly a stack just to fill it. It's quite a hefty one. This thing's heating up because it's supposed to deal with 2 turbines, not 1. So let's quickly make the second one. It was a bad idea. There we go. Now this thing's happily just filled up all of these. Ah, I didn't show you the max. Damn it. I'm an idiot. Don't worry about it. Okay, this thing was obviously getting up to speed, so yeah, it's active. It's fine. So just quickly make a small 5x5. Speed through this. Blah blah blah. Okay, I'm just going to knock off the 4 corners just in case, see what happens. Blade, 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 blade. And glass. And housing. Ah, shit. Oh, okay, place right. What's wrong? Ah, one rotor bearing, of course. Sorted! Okay, one of you changed. You. Activate. There we go, this turbine will happily speed up as well. This might not have been enough coil in this one. Yeah, this is speeding up kind of quickly. Well, it should be interesting to see what I can make with this kind of power. 2,000 millibuckets per tick. It's a bit inefficient, but this is a small reactor just to soak up the steam. Come on. See how it does. Well, it's not doing too bad in terms of RPM, but it is slowing down the rate at which it's increasing. It's decelerating. But it is making a lot of energy. And this thing is... any eyes in the way? Hang on. Oh, there we go. Okay. This thing's energy buffer is just full immediately. And it's still speeding up in terms of RPM, which is pretty good. That's the kind of speed you'll see it go at. And this thing's still speeding up as well. But yeah, again, its energy buffer is happily full. Still. Now this one happily produces 4,000 millibuckets per tick. If I up this, this will just start dropping a little bit. I think. Or was 11% the safe zone? I think it was a safe zone. No, the temperature's still dropping. Hang on, if I shut it off very briefly. The temperature's climbing again. That's really strange. I thought it was better than... Never mind. Yeah, that happily hits those marks. Yeah, 13% is the minimum you need, but when the waste gets to above a certain amount, you need to change it back to 11%. The amount of power it produces, or steam in this case, is relative to its waste. If you see the little number, because I can't point to it with my mouse because it's attached to the mouse, but as you can see it's moving. So the fuel, there's the whole core fuel status, then there's fuel rods 5, maximum capacity so much. Fuel is 5950 and it's dropping slightly, and the waste is increasing. That doesn't increase all the way. As soon as it gets to 1000 or 999, it'll eject a single cyanide and the waste will go back to 0. This means but because there's slightly less fuel, it produces slightly less steam, which means you need to have it working slightly over what you would expect. Just a minor adjustment you have to think about. Anyway, to upgrade this from a 2-turbine reactor to a 4-turbine reactor makes one minor change. It's not actually that minor, but still. Let's break all this. Grab fuel rods. Grab that. Oh dear. I put a fuel rod down. I put a control rod down rather. Is you change it from a plus design of fuel rods to a square 3x3 solid design. Change it to that. Reactor goes back to normal again. But with this particular setup, I believe it is anyway, all control rods are set to 0%. So just set it to that. And this thing will heat up like crazy as well. The core heat will be slightly higher in this version because it's a big chunky core instead. And obviously the rate of fuel usage is going to look wrong because of the casing heat. So I'm just going to go and make a quick couple of other turbines just to soak up the excess Okay, so that is 4 turbines now currently up and running, the 3 tiny ones and the proper one. So this particular one should happily create 8,000 millibuckets per tick, or 8 buckets per tick. There we go, it's just about hitting it. Now this thing will drop a tiny bit of water. This thing is just about making all the water back from the turbines, and this initial water is that initial water coming in? Yeah, it is coming in. So, now that's kind of struggling a little bit. Ideally, you want your startup water to cover anything that your turbines may lose in just random number calculations, so you want a bit more than 4 of these things, especially as the reservoirs work faster, and I have about 6 of them to run my 2 turbines, so I'm just going to set up a few more. Just a little bit, just to make this work. Okay, I'm going to need a sledgehammer. Hang on. Actually, I wonder. No, need the sledgehammer. The only reason I'm using the sledgehammer and no other kind of tools because that's the only one that's usable on the server, as all other kinds are banned. And like so. My curiosity is, and it needs to be a source block. I think. Yeah, these need to be source blocks. So, and and these will happily make water anyway. So that should help with the water problem. Okay, no, it wasn't a water problem. Never mind. Anyway, this thing happily uses just 0.49 millibuckets per tick. I'm sure earlier in the video you saw the millibucket output for the other things. These were controls all set to 0%. And that's 4 turbines that will happily work at maximum speed. Now, I do have another setup which is the same thing again, except it's literally just 3 blocks taller. You just make the fuel rods taller, same shape and configuration, and you change the control rods to 4%. You can take those percentages down a little bit for all the designs. Either the biggest design, because of how much it deals with, a single percent will change a large factor. So with the big design, you just change it 1%. And for when the waste is really, really low, like the one, there you go, waste is now low, so it's producing the necessary millibuckets per tick quite happily. But when the waste gets higher, you want to change the percentages up a tiny, down a tiny bit, so that it produces more power. Of course, with the other design that was already at 0, this design's already at 0%, so it's kind of you're kind of at the mercy of the waste amount, but it's pretty okay at keeping everything running. I'm sure a slightly more efficient design could be made, and such. Yeah, just make the other design 3 blocks taller, and it'll happily run 8 turbines. I don't have the time to build another 4 turbines and make this bigger, just to show that off. You'll have to trust me on that, but I may get around to doing it at some point and showing you. Either way, I hope this has been a kind of useful tutorial for you to kind of understand how turbines work and run. A good useful reference making these. Just remember though, this thing, is it up to speed? Come on, be up to speed. Oh, it's not up to speed. Okay, you'll have to trust me on these numbers. But when this thing gets up to speed, which is nearly 1,800 RPM, which is one of the ideal limits, the 2 limits being 900 and 1,800, as it says there, when this gets up, it produces a maximum of 24,071 RF per tick. And that is a whoppingly massive amount of energy. Enough to run Minefactory Reloaded lasers. And boy are they fun. I'll get to them another time anyway, so I shall see you guys next time. Something I also forgot to add to the end of the video was if anybody has any other ideas for stuff they want to see in tutorials, just leave a comment below. I will read them, and whatever gets most suggested I will make a tutorial next, but eventually I'll get around to pretty much everything I can. Until then,